What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Punt Intended, the sports channel where everything is made up and punts don't matter. So this is the recap for the Ravens' loss to the Steelers, 20-19, that occurred earlier today on Sunday. And I decided to wait a little bit longer to kind of think about this game and how it played out. The biggest takeaway I had was the offensive issues that have continued and plagued the Ravens. Um, that first drive that they had, Lamar throws off his back foot and throws a floater into the air for an interception. And then they proceed the very next drive to go 99 yards for a touchdown, or in the second quarter. I guess there are a few more drives later. But overall, the offense is still stuck in a funk. They can't seem to figure out how to get going, and it takes too long to get going for them. And Lamar, I'm just going to say it, I think has slightly regressed. Not slightly, has regressed even more from last year. He's holding on to the ball too long. He's not going through his reads properly. And obviously, I'm not a quarterback, so I don't know exactly what he's seeing, but his mental clock is not there. He just doesn't know right now what to do when the play breaks down. Normally he's very good at just scrambling and stuff, but defenses have been able to contain him and get him before he's able to break out of the pocket. And that's what happened a few times on some sacks, where he got taken down a few yards behind the last scrimmage as he was scrambling. And, I think the fact that you have one of the most mobile quarterbacks in the league, that at least at one point they said had the second most number of sacks against him this season, which maybe has taken over the number one spot, shows that the offensive line is probably the biggest issue, and it probably will be the biggest thing offensively that the Ravens, I think, need to deal with in the offseason. That's probably where I would want them to draft, go offensive line, start over, have obviously not having Ronnie Stanley hurts, but being able to have him on the left side instead of the turnstile that Alejandro Villanueva was again today, allowing T.J. Watt to get a few sacks on him. Tyree Phillips allowed a sack or two, I think, as well, both for Watt and Wormley. And the offensive line is what's holding them back. Well, that's probably the number one issue. Number two is just the injuries that's suffered. Marlon Humphrey is going to be out for the rest of the season with some sort of shoulder injury that he suffered on the Deontay Johnson game-winning touchdown, as it turns out. That's why Harbaugh said he went for two, because if they had gone to overtime and the Steelers got the ball, he probably thought that the Ravens wouldn't be able to stop them because of not having any good corners, because all they would have had, their best corner would have been Anthony Averett, and that's probably the number one corner going forward. Jimmy Smith is probably at 2, and the defense is just battered right now, and they were looking good for the first 3 quarters, but they buckled and gave up so many yards in the fourth quarter that the Ravens just let the Steelers get back into the game, and the Ravens are lucky that it wasn't a bigger deficit that they had to deal with when Johnson, a pretty sure-handed receiver, dropped an easy touchdown in the end zone. And also, the Ravens just not coming away with a field goal on that first drive hurt them. What other drive was it? There was another drive where they weren't able to get a touchdown. I think it was where at one point it was like third and 24, or second and 24. They get inside they get to like 3rd and 8 somehow, and instead of getting a touchdown out of it, they had to kick a field goal, and that really hurt them. And so Yeah, I think the Ravens at this point are looking like most AFC teams. They're looking very vulnerable. This would have given them a well over 2 game lead in the division. Right now, they're only a game up on Cincy. Cleveland obviously was on the bye, and of course we have to play at Cleveland next week. So that's gonna be tough. And after watching that offensive line, how they couldn't handle the Steelers, they handled Myles Garrett pretty well last week, but I think Myles Garrett could feast on them, and Lamar is going to be on his backside again more. And they were talking about that in the broadcast. The frustration is just starting to boil over on the offense. I don't think Greg Roman's going to make the season, or at least not is going to last into next season at the rate this is going with the offense. And the Ravens are not afraid to fire an offensive coordinator during the season. They did that back in 2012, the Super Bowl year. But I can't remember who they fired. But they brought in Cam Cameron right in the end of December. They went on a skid as well. I think they lost they backpedaled into the playoffs that year. Only won one of the last 4 or 5 games going into the playoffs, including a blowout loss at home to the Broncos. But the offense awoke in the playoffs, obviously, and they would ride Joe Flacco to a Super Bowl, surprisingly. So I think that's going to be a possibility. And obviously, the big thing is obviously the going for the 2 points. I like it. I think the analytics says you need to go for that there. But Tomlin also said that because the Ravens are so analytical, it makes them predictable. So they knew they were going to go for 2 if they scored a touchdown anyway. Regardless of what Harbaugh said, I feel like they probably still would have gone for 2 anyway, whether Humphrey was there or not. And the play was a good play. If they had an extra defender be able to chip TJ, that's an easy walk-in right there. As it was just the smallest bit outside of Andrews' reach to where he couldn't tip it back. He tipped it, but he tipped it forward. He couldn't tip it back to himself, obviously. And so, that hurt the Ravens, obviously. It's a tough loss. I didn't think the Ravens were going to be the 1 seed anyway going into the playoffs. It's just crazy how they were somehow kind of fell into that with how crazy the AFC has been this year, with all the parity, which I do like, having so much parity in the NFL. There's no one true good team. Every team seems to struggle or not look good every week, it seems. There's another team that seems to do that. Like the Bucks, didn't look very good. Tom Brady had a pick 6 and stuff. Other than, maybe the Packers and maybe the Cardinals, every other team is struggling. And the AFC is a crapshoot. There's not a one true good team. I still don't really believe in the Patriots or the Bills at this point. So tomorrow night's game will prove a lot to me, whoever wins that game. But, the Ravens are 8-4. I hope they can win out. I doubt it with how this offense is going. If the offense keeps playing like this, I can see at the very minimum 2 more losses to the Packers and to the Rams, both at home, which that would be huge losses for the Ravens. Obviously, it wouldn't really affect it would affect their potential playoff standings, but it's really those remaining 3 divisional games, 1 each against the Browns, the Bengals, and the Steelers. 2 of those are on the road at the Browns and then at the Bengals, and the Ravens finish at home. Finish the season at home versus the Steelers. So, there's gonna be a lot that's gonna happen this offseason. The Ravens have a good amount of money that'll be freed up in cap, potentially. And so, obviously, Lamar is probably going to get an extension this offseason, but the Ravens, I think, need to go, secondary and offensive line. I think that's the big thing, and probably defensive line as well. because I don't think Campbell or Williams are going to be there going into next year, because they're going to be pretty expensive for their age. So, it puts the Ravens are in a particularly weird spot. They're the 3 seed now at 8-4, with I'm going to say the Patriots and the Titans ahead of them. Meanwhile, the Steelers are still on the outside looking in currently, but this bolsters them greatly, obviously. And so, hopefully the Ravens can get revenge come Week 18, and maybe, secure a playoff spot at the expense of the Steelers, or maybe they already have. We'll just have to wait and see. But, there's a lot of issues the Ravens need to deal with. The offense just needs to figure it out. And, I'm having not doubts, but it's discouraging seeing what's going on with Lamar with his issues. And so, hopefully, having more of a training camp, being able to have more time with his receivers like Bateman and Watkins and so on and so forth next year, if Watkins is still there, will help him. But, we'll just have to wait and see. And the Ravens' next game will be next Sunday at the Browns. I think it's at 1 o'clock. So, I'll be streaming that game, and I hope you guys can tune in. This is a little bit longer because there's a little bit more I wanted to talk about, because this is kind of a big deal with this game, obviously, and how important it is to the Ravens. And as a fan, obviously, it's important. But I'm glad for everyone that watched the stream and that watches this video for supporting me. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will be streaming the Bills-Patriots game tomorrow night as well. So I hope you join me then. Thanks, and have a good night.